We all take songs with us, whether it's singing in the shower or lip syncing when we're behind the wheel of the car. Songs go with us. And in the middle of the Bible is the book of Psalms, which is a book entirely full of songs. And they are songs that, if you're a follower of Jesus, you're supposed to take with you. Songs that are supposed to be lived out. Songs that help form the lives of faith that we lead. And so this summer, we're going to look at that book of Psalms, look at these songs of faith, and hopefully help be formed by them, be changed by them. But before we get into the things that we do find ourselves singing all the time, let me start by saying something that nobody said when they woke up this morning. Nobody got out of bed this morning and said, I hope I have a really bad day today. Everybody wants life, day-to-day life and week-to-week life, month-to-month, year-to-year, whole of our lives, to be good, to be a success. We want to be winning in some way, shape or form. There are myriads of books that can help you be successful in all sorts of different ways, shape or forms. The adverts that you will see on the internet or on the TV are in some way telling us how you can be successful if you do this. Your life will be good if you get that. Well, the first psalm, the psalm that we're going to hear today and study, is the Song of Success. So let's turn our attention to Psalm number 1.
Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish.
The whole book of Psalms is structured into 5 different parts. If you read through the book, you'll see occasionally it kind of breaks and says book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5. That kind of 5-part series is there to mirror the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That was traditionally referred to as the books of the law. And so when in Psalm chapter 1, it refers to the book of the law, and the whole of the book of Psalms is shaped like those first 5 books of the Bible. It's designed to make us think that these Psalms are the book of the law as well. This book of Psalms is also what we're supposed to be delighting in. Psalms means song or poem. That means that the Psalms exist in order to stir up our emotions, to hit us in the gut or the heart. If the Psalms were just about ideas, they wouldn't be songs, they would be prose. But they're not, they're poetry. And the great thing about the 150 different songs that we have in the book of Psalms is that they cover a really wide variety of emotions. And so you can find yourself in the Psalms. You can find the Psalms giving you the voice that you want to have in a massive variety of different lives, of different experiences in life. Let me give you 16 different examples of when the Psalms talk about different emotions. I am lonely and afflicted. My soul is full of troubles. I love you, O Lord, my strength. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. I am sorry for my sin. Why are you cast down, O my soul, and why are you in turmoil within me? all who see me mock me. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvellous in our eyes. His delight is in the law of the Lord. You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and their wine abound. I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Be angry and do not sin. My eye wastes away because of grief. Let your steadfast love, O Lord, be upon me, even as we hope in you. I am afflicted and in pain, yet I will be confident. Do you see, the Psalms help us to carry and express and give shape to our emotions. So if we don't read them and get hit by that, we're reading them wrong. The Psalms are supposed to hit you in the heart. They're supposed to hit you in the gut. And Psalm number 1 taps into something that I think is really just totally normal in human life. And that is that we are formed by our experiences. That way that Psalm chapter 1 starts, where it goes, and it talks about how the righteous person doesn't walk in the counsel of the wicked, doesn't stand in the way of sinners, and doesn't sit in the way of scoffers. Scoffers, by the way, it means kind of boasting and arrogance. It can lead to a really obvious question. Okay, if this is describing what the Christian life is supposed to be like, does that mean then that a Christian cannot even be friends with, shouldn't associate with anybody who isn't a Christian? The answer is helpfully in a kind of lesson of how to read the Psalms. The words of the Psalms are poetry, and so they are metaphors that have a meaning beyond what is maybe first seen. It's not that they don't mean what they say, it's that there's more meaning to them than that. And these words of walking and then standing and then sitting are metaphors for the way that our internal attitudes and our external behaviours can be progressive. It starts with just a kind of casual identification, walking with, but then it moves to standing, and then eventually it becomes complete association, sitting. That there is a way of living in the world where you become totally indistinct from the world. There is a kind of a second nature, default orientation that affects most of us. What do you think without thinking about? Our moral muscles are trained and are shaped in the same way that our biological muscles are trained and shaped. The way somebody who's really good at piano can play a scale without thinking about it, and somebody who's never touched a piano before would have to think really hard about it and be really slow and clumsy at it. Look, let me give you a silly example. What happens when you do this? You see, if you ask a child to squat down like this, their form will be perfect. Their knees will track over their toes, their back will be straight, and their chest will be upright. But if you're not a child and you do it, then you'll find that your knees curve inwards and don't go over your toes, or you bend your back, or your chest isn't upright. Because we have spent our lives slouching on sofas and sitting at desk chairs, those things have formed us. And so the way we've been formed affects how we move. And if you wanted to correct the way you squat down, you would have to spend hours and hours retraining your muscles and your joints. You see, following Jesus is not so much about the acquiring of information. It is about being reformed. It is about being changed. So does that mean, in answer to the question, that Christians can't associate with anybody who's not a Christian? Of course not. But there is a lesson to be learned in what the psalm is saying here, and that there is a way of being formed by the world around us, because we have all lived and all do live in a world that rejects the law of the Lord and doesn't delight in it. And we all ourselves have rejected the law of the Lord and haven't delighted in it at times. And in order for us to be different, we need to be reformed. We need to be changed by the law of the Lord. It needs to not just be information that we receive, it needs to go deeper into us than that. And in order for that to happen, what does Psalm 1 say must happen? You need to meditate on the law of the Lord. You don't just need to hear what it says. You need to fix your mind on a particular truth. Meditating means speaking that truth into your own heart. Speaking it until you get a sense of God and an awareness of the closeness of his presence. Meditating is like pressing that truth of the Bible into your heart until it catches fire. It's like organic matter over time and pressure becoming natural gas or coal or oil. And in order to do that, in order for that to happen, you need to meditate on the law of the Lord day and night. You have to be incredibly methodical about it. You need to do it regularly, in good times and in bad. And that won't just be a gaining of information, it will be a forming of you. Let me give you a personal example. Earlier this month, I decided I wanted to read the book of Jeremiah, but I wanted to do it using an audiobook. And so for just a couple of weeks, maybe half an hour a day, I would listen to the book of Jeremiah whilst I was folding clothes at home or cooking or doing the washing up or any of those kind of things. Just start an audiobook. I finished it about 2 weeks ago now. If you asked me, what does the book of Jeremiah say? Well, I can tell you, probably remember a few of the things it says. But if you ask me, how did that affect you? I could tell you way more. I could tell you way more about how it made me feel about my own flaws and failings, about how it made me feel about my own sin, how it made me aware of how much God cares about human beings, about how much God cares about the injustice in the world, and about how good his promises are. I can tell you far more about what I felt listening to the book of Jeremiah than I can tell you the literal words it said. But this might leave you asking the question, why does it have to be so hard? Why do you have to meditate on the word of the Lord day and night in order to be devoted to it? Well, I think the answer is because it has that much to give, because God has that much to offer. Okay, think about coffee for a second, and think about two people who like coffee. The first one says, I really like coffee. I love to have a nice cafetiere on a Saturday morning. The other person says, I really like coffee. For 3 years, I worked in a coffee roastery. I now get different artisan coffees delivered every month through a subscription service. And during the coffee break at work every day, I make a V60 for all of the people in my team. Both of these people love coffee, but coffee has given far more to the second person. Or think about running. First person says, I like to go on a run once a week, it makes me feel good. The second person says, I run about 4 times a week and I make sure that one of those runs is at least 15 miles, so I really feel like I get my legs underneath me. And a couple of years ago, I got into fell running actually, and I've really enjoyed that. It's a different challenge, different environment. Oh, and next year I'm going to be doing my first ultra marathon. Both of these people enjoy running, but the second person has got far more out of running than the first person has. Well, what about the law of the Lord? The first person could say, I like listening to the talks from the Bible at church on a Sunday, and I try to get along to a life group every so often. And the second person says, blessed is the one whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water. Okay, you might say, fine, Dave, I'm convinced. If I want to be a follower of Jesus who is like a tree planted by streams of water, if I want to flourish, I need to delight, meditate on the law of the Lord day and night. Lots of people want to do that, but I think, let's be honest, lots of people find it hard as well. The two most common reasons people find it hard, I think, are people who would say, I have a very busy and chaotic life, and so it's hard to do. Or people who would say, actually, reading isn't really my thing. I find reading hard. Can I say, I really empathise with both of those things. I'm a dyslexic, and so reading is not easy for me. And I have 2 toddlers who I live with at home. And so life is chaotic and is not quiet. Can I just offer 8 simple tips from a dyslexic father of toddlers on how I try to delight in the law of the Lord day and night. The first one is have my Bible, not a Bible. This is my Bible. And so I know where I've written notes in it. I can remember where certain things are said, like by vaguely where it is on the page, and you're hearing something and you go, oh, it says something about that in 1 Corinthians. I can't remember where, but it's on like the top right-hand corner of the page. Have my Bible, not a Bible. Second tip, have a time and have a place. Whether it's your daily commute in the morning, or whether it's your lunch break where you sit in a particular chair, or whether it's in the evening when you're lying in bed, have a time and a place where you turn to the Bible. Third thing, have a plan. There was a study done a few years ago that showed that on average it takes 66 days to form a habit. So have a plan. And that should be really encouraging if before you've tried to read the Bible regularly and after 2 or 3 weeks, you've kind of got out of the habit and you kind of never got back into the habit. Don't be discouraged by that. If it takes 66 days to form a habit and you didn't after 3 weeks, well, actually that's a really common experience. Don't be discouraged. Have a plan. Tip number 4, if you're turning on the Bible, turn off your notifications. You will be astonished at how good the world is at coping without you for 15 minutes a day. Tip number 5, try an audio Bible. There are plenty of good ones and lots of them are available for free. It's particularly good if you want to delight in the law of the Lord when you can't literally be reading, like when you're driving a car, or if you find reading hard like I do. Also, there can be a bit of a snobbery around audio Bibles not being as good as reading the Bible. It's worth remembering that for the first 1,500 years of church history, most Christians either could not read or did not have a translation of the Bible available in the language that they could read. So they learnt the Bible by hearing it. Try an audio Bible. Tip number 6, try reading narrative fast. So if you're reading Genesis or Exodus or Kings or Judges or one of the Gospels, try reading big chunks fast and get a sense of the narrative. Tip number 7, try reading wisdom slowly. So if you're reading the Psalms or one of the prophets or a New Testament letter, read a small amount and have the chance to chew on it and to process it, to think about it, to pray through it. And tip number 8, build other habits around your habit of delighting in the law of the Lord day and night. That same study that said that it took 66 days on average to form a habit also found that some habits, if they are easier to form, will form much more quickly. And so make reading the Bible as easy as you can for yourself. Either do it while you would normally be doing something that you do every day, like on your commute, or read the Bible whilst doing something you really enjoy. If you really enjoy drinking coffee in the morning, why not enjoy drinking coffee in the morning with your Bible? 8 simple tips that this dyslexic parent of toddlers has found helped him to daily delight in the law of the Lord. But this might leave people saying, that sounds like a lot of work. Why would I bother? Well, Psalm 1 describes what happens if you delight in the law of the Lord by saying that if you do, you will be like a tree that bears fruit in season and that is planted by streams of water, and its leaf does not wither in winter. This is what Psalm number 1 has to say about success. That if you delight in the law of the Lord day and night and you meditate on it, you'll be like a tree. And the opposite is what's described as chaff, that funny word in verse 4. Chaff is the kind of husk that's basically worthless that comes around the outside of a corn. And chaff is so light that when you have a big pile of both corn that you want to keep and chaff that you don't want to keep, one of the ways of separating them is to kind of just throw them in the air and let the wind blow the chaff away because it's so light. And it says, if you don't delight in the law of the Lord, if you don't meditate on it, you'll end up like chaff, thrown into the air and blown away, pushed around by the world around us. But if you want to be a tree, if you want to have a solidity about you, you can be an evergreen tree by delighting in the law of the Lord. And a tree, why does it say a tree? Well, a tree gives beauty, it gives colour, it makes life worth living. That's the kind of success that Psalm chapter 1 offers. A tree also, if it's alive, it gives shelter. It serves a real function to others. That's the kind of success that Psalm 1 offers. And this tree doesn't wither in winter. It's evergreen. And it brings fruit in its season. Delight in the law of the Lord, and you will find fruit appears. Love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness, gentleness and self-control. And do you know what? Trees are made to do something else too. This is why the law of the Lord is worth meditating on. In preparation for speaking today, I have been reading Psalm number 1 every morning for the last couple of weeks. It wasn't until yesterday when I read Psalm number 1 first thing in the morning, and I was thinking about, well, what does it mean to prosper in verse 3? What does it mean to be successful? What really is offering? I thought about how a tree offers beauty and it offers shelter and it offers fruit. But then I remembered that at the end of the book of Psalms, there are 3 psalms clustered together. Psalm 148, 149, and 150. Psalms that are all about praise to God. And in Psalm 148, it says, mountains and all hills, fruit trees and all cedars, let them praise the name of the Lord. A fruit tree, a tree that is bearing fruit, is supposed to praise the name of the Lord at the end of the book of Psalms. And a cedar is supposed to praise the name of the Lord. And a cedar is an evergreen tree. It doesn't lose its greenness in winter. And the Hebrew word that means cedar comes from an origin that means to have tenacious roots. A tree with good tenacious roots by a stream, bearing fruit in season and out of season, is supposed to praise the name of the Lord, is supposed to prosper in worshipping God. If you or I read Psalm 1, 3,000 years ago, we'd get to verse 6 and we'd see that only the righteous will survive judgment. And I guess we would respond by going, well, I hope I'm righteous and I hope I'm not wicked. But then if we kept reading the book of Psalms, we'd read things like where it says in Psalm 14, there is no one who does good, not even one. And actually, maybe we wouldn't even need to read the Psalms. We know from our own lives that there's lots of the time where I haven't been particularly righteous, that I haven't done good. But this is where the Psalms, this is where what we delight in is worth delighting in. This is where the law of the Lord becomes really good news. Because when Jesus came, he did fulfill all righteousness. He did obey the laws of the Lord. He did all that God wanted him to do. And yet on the cross, when he died, he spoke the words of Psalm 22. He said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Even though he had lived the perfect life, he had fulfilled the law of the Lord. He had been totally righteous. He died the death of somebody who deserved much worse. He died the death of somebody who hadn't fulfilled the law of the Lord, who hadn't been righteous. And because of that, I can know that I am free from judgment and can delight in God, because I know that the judgment I am due to receive, Jesus has taken for me. And I can live in him because I know that I can delight in the law of the Lord, because the law of the Lord speaks to me that good news. That is the streams that you are putting your roots in if you meditate on the law of the Lord day and night. And if you do, you will last through any winter. Let me pray for us. Father, for all our lives, we pray we would find ourselves in the counsel of those who are wise and would meditate on your word. Let us find great delight in it. Let your word pierce our hearts. Let it do so every day and every night, in good times and in bad. Make us grow as followers of Jesus, stronger and stronger. Let the work of our hands bear increasing fruit for your kingdom. Make us mighty in you, that we can weather the hardest of seasons and can give life and shelter to others in the midst of hardship as well as in the midst of goodness. Make us prosper. Thank you, God, that you know our ways and that because of Jesus' completed work, you have made us righteous in your eyes.